Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Kula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit kula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. So tonight I thought I would talk about Kula. And of course, the name of this group is Kula, which means victory family. The victory part's easy to understand. Victory means realizing your own nature. So it's the family of people who are gathered together in order to realize our own nature, our real nature. The word Kula is actually an ordinary word that means family, but it has an ancient and specific set of meanings in the Trika Shaivite tradition. So although it could be used in an ordinary way, it has been used in special ways for many hundreds of years. And there are many beautiful writings from the Trika tradition about the meaning of Kula, some of which we've occasionally studied together. But I'll talk about two of the meanings of Kula right now. And from that, you can kind of infer something very essential about a spiritual community. First of all, Kula means those who are gathered around as part of the spiritual family of a teacher. There's a specific word for that, Guru Kula. So in ancient times and even today, there would be a teacher living in a householder situation, because this tradition and these kinds of traditions were never really monastic until very recent times, when there were some occasional monasteries calling themselves tantric monasteries or something. But for the most part, these have been householder traditions. And so the teacher would live with a family, and then students would gather around and live in that same household or nearby and receive teaching, and sometimes be supported by donations that were given to the teacher. The wealthy students would give donations, and then people without much money would be supported, and work would be done, seva would be done, and teachings would be given in different settings, but more informal than the kinds of settings we have today, like where you go to a workshop or something. But the word Kula didn't only mean students gathered around a teacher. It meant the collection of energies that constituted that entire community, however small or large it might have been. There are different ways that this is talked about in the texts of Trika Shaivism, but one way it's talked about is that the students are the chakras of the teacher, and that together they make up one body. So we have a body, we have our different energy centers, but in the ancient tradition it's sometimes said that you are all the chakras of this one body, and the teacher is the central channel. The idea of Kula, the two main meanings are family and collection. It's a collection in the sense that there's some different aspects of this family. But the collection never means a set of disconnected parts. In the context of Kula and Trika Shaivism, the collection always means differentiations within a whole. So I may have a body and I may have chakras, but they are one whole experience. They're united, even though we can point to different aspects of it. In the same way, the family of the teacher or the family of the spiritual community is one whole body, but there are different identifiable aspects of it. So it's a collection that forms a body. And in that sense, it's a kind of an anda. So an anda has different things that are expressing through that anda, through that zone of creative expression. but it has a unity also. When you are born into your birth family, you get DNA that determines a lot of things, or gives you a certain kind of start, gives you a shape, gives you some predilections, and possibly some things that happen and unfold as you live. In the same way, in a Kula of a spiritual community, or the spiritual community as Kula, you are getting your spiritual DNA from that community. So through what's called the Vidya Shakti, the wisdom energy of that stream of teachings, you also are receiving a kind of an imprint. And the whole community forms one body. So the shape of that community is very much influenced by the teachings themselves and the stream of wisdom energy that is coming through that teacher. Especially in these direct realization traditions, there's a lot of unique shaping that happens. There's some kind of personality being expressed that everybody is participating in some way or another. So you could say, for instance, that Kruocracy is part of the DNA of this community. It's part of and it's a creative expression that's coming through somehow and helping to shape things for us. We also have various teachings that are doing that. But even more, on a more subtle level, there is literally an energy body that has been created together by those of us who are practicing consistently and following these teachings. We have created an energy body together, and we are connected in an esoteric way through that energy body. And when you are a little awake, you can feel that energy body. Kula is also used in the Trika tradition, not just to describe the bodies of spiritual communities or these families that have coalesced. You know, every family has like a culture and a flavor and stuff. Well, so do spiritual communities, right? That's part of their body. So that's what the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's just on a kind of a different scale than a birth family. But in the view teachings of Trika Shaivism, Kula is also used to refer to the whole cosmos, not just a spiritual community, as a collection of expressions that belong together. This is a very useful thing to realize, that we are not a closed Kula, that any Kula is open to the whole, is open to the cosmos, and that this Kula, as profound as our experience of it might be, is helping people to graduate so that they can experience everything as Kula. So the idea is that you have the spiritual community and you gather around the teacher and you receive the energy of these teachings and you work with them and you experience that energy body however much time it takes you to realize. But then once having realized to some degree or another, you then graduate to experiencing everything as family and everyone as family, and every aspect of the creation as an aspect of your own body. Ananda Mayama always expressed this. Those of you that have been around for a while will remember the stories, or maybe you've read them yourself, where devotees of hers said, "Ma, aren't you annoyed by all the people who are always touching you and grabbing you and wanting something from you?" And she said, "No, why would I be annoyed? You know, if my own hand grabs my arm, would I be annoyed at my own hand?" She said, I never feel that any stranger is touching me. It's only myself touching myself, or myself, demanding something of myself. And she said, so for that reason, it never bothers me. And you can see little clips of her on YouTube where she's just surrounded by people just pressing in on her. And she's just gleefully, really very cheerily, handing out fruit and whatever she's doing, prasad. She looks almost happiest in those moments. She's an example of someone who experienced everything as an aspect of her own body, and at the same time was so finely tuned to the differences in everything, and who was experiencing the whole world as family, as Kula. Everything that she encountered, every animal, every person, every phenomenon, as family. So the Kula, the spiritual community, is a way to enlarge your view of family. Some people, most people, have certain identifications with different families, their birth family, maybe some people at work or friends, but most people do not identify with a bunch of strangers. So the first thing that happens is, a spiritual community comes together, and most of the people didn't know each other before that happened. So there you are, in a direct realization tradition, there you are with a bunch of people that you didn't choose. And that is absolutely key to the alchemy of the situation. If you got to go, on the Tinder version for spiritual communities and choose exactly the characteristics of the people that you want to hang out with, the whole purpose of having the community would be eviscerated. If we only want to hang out with people that we choose, that we feel comfortable with, that validate our view of ourselves, then there's very little possibility that community will help you to realize your real nature. You have to be able to open your heart and get reflection from people that you didn't choose. That's the first step in being able to open your heart to everyone without exception. You learn to open your heart to, 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 people who you didn't know before and who maybe aren't people that you would have chosen. But you somehow over time end up loving all of them. And you realize that you have this tremendous capacity that you didn't know you had before, which is for loving people that you don't feel comfortable with, loving people that you didn't choose. And then suddenly at some point you realize that, hey, you could love everybody. That's the purpose of it. Being together with all these wacky people that you didn't choose. It's also why you read over and over and over again, if you're in a spiritual community and someone is bothering you, that person is the person you should hang out with. That person is your guru. Because ultimately, we are not trying to draw lines in the sand or define ourselves against other people. That's not what self-realization looks like. So when we are in a community, in an energy body with a whole bunch of people that we didn't choose, and somebody inevitably, is annoying us or rubbing us the wrong way, then that's a person that we want to try to open our heart to. That would be of tremendous benefit to you to do that, if you can. But that's what we use the spiritual community for. And there's just that tremendous sense of, I could love anybody that you end up with after being in a spiritual community for a while. My first experience of this was really not in a spiritual community, but in gay and lesbian communities. Communities where people had been rejected by their families or not 100% accepted by their families. And I noticed early on that in those communities, people really reached out to people in a different way than in sort of the normative situation that people were in, because they needed to have new family because their birth families were not supportive. That really taught me a lot. And the other thing that taught me about the value and the alchemy of creating family out of strangers was Al-Anon. Some people in my family are drug and alcohol users, and, long story short, when I was in my 20s, I ended up in Al-Anon. And, I just had my mind blown by listening to all these different people from completely different situations, communicating very profoundly and sharing things that were meaningful and helping each other. Oh, I really count that as my first experience of the value of a community of strangers. And now I'm in another community where we're not so much strangers anymore. But in some senses, some people, or all of us, still have a ways to go, right, to really open our hearts to each other and recognize our own capacity to love. You have way more capacity to love than you think you do. And over time, maybe years and years and years, if we all stick together and maintain Jai Kula and keep practicing, you're going to find that you spectacularly value every single person. And it's going to absolutely, completely change the terms of your existence. You'll think of that. What if you no longer felt anyone was a stranger? What if you no longer felt anyone wasn't worthy of love? What if you just walked around every day feeling that? That's the reward of Kula.